संसारदावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य घन घनत्वम् संसारदावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य घन घनत्वम् प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणर्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाध्यान् मनसोरसेना रोमाञ्चकम्पा श्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमार्जनादो आराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमार्जनादो युक्तस्य भक्तं च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादा साध्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो साध्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो साध्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो साध्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां कामाधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना कामाधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला प्रतिक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुंजयूनो रत केली सिद्धय यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपि कीर्तिरपेक्षणीया यूनो रथ केली सिद्धय यायालिभियुक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्षादातिवल्लभास्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेना समस्तशास्त्रै उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः रीत्वेना समस्तशास्त्रै उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्यः प्रिय एव तस्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि ध्यायान्स्तु वंस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् 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 नमा ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशातारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंदा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंदा हे कृष्ण चैतन्य कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा नील माधव राधा नील माधव राधे जय जय राधे जय जय श्याम जय जय श्री वृंदावन धाम राधे जय जय श्याम जय जय श्री वृंदावन धाम जय जय राधे जय जय श्याम जय जय श्री वृंदावन धाम जय जय श्याम जय श्री वृंदावन धाम जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा मैया जय सुदर्शन चक्र जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा मैया जय सुदर्शन जय सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवक्ताचार्य स्कोन फाउंडरचार्य कृष्ण कृपा मूर्ति चरणारविंदे श्री भक्ति वेदांत श्री प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय। फाउंडराचार्य जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री रामचंद्र भगवान की गंगा माई यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गोवर्धन की जय। गोप गोपीनाथ की जय। श्री धाम श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। अयोध्या धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की धर्म क्षेत्र कुरुक्षेत्र ज्योतिष तीर्थ धाम की जय। संवेद भक्तवृंद की जय। युग धर्म हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। गौर निताई की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glory to somebody devotees Hare Krishna. All glory to somebody devotees Hare Krishna. All glory to somebody devotees. जय श्री गौर गंगा श्री प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भक्ति श्रीमद भक्ति वेदांत गौरवाणी प्रचारणे नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रहलाद लाद दायिने हिरण्यकाशी पूर्व सहाय शिलाटंकान कालाए ये तो नरसिंहा पर तो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बाहिर नरसिंहा हृदय नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव कर कमल वरे नखाम अद्भुत सिंगाम दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर रे नखा अद्भुत सिंगा ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता जगदीश हरे हरे जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय भक्त प्रहलाद की जय प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi Jeto Mara Sharanaloy Tara Vancha Purna Hoy Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavana Vashi Moraye Abilas Kunja Das Kunja Diovas Nayane Hari Bosada Jogalaru Parashi Ei Nivedana Daro Sakhinanugata Koro Sevadikara diye koro nijadasi Dina Krishna dase koye je namora hoy Shri Radha Govinda preme sadaye nabashi Shri Radha Govinda preme sadaye nabashi Shri Radha Govinda preme sadaye nabashi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Asi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Yani tani japapani Brahma hatya dekani cha Tani tani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
ब्रह्मात्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यायकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मात्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यायकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Vrinda Devi ki jai, Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Vishnu Bhakti Prata Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devyaya Priyaya Keshavascha Vishnu Bhakti Prata Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devyaya Priyaya Keshavascha Vishnu Bhakti Prata Devi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Devi Tulsi Maharani ki jai.
auspicious ritual activities, offering the Veda the fruit activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just desire compassion, following tradition souls. Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavendra Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Pudivardhanam Pratipadam Purunarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smarani Nagalaha Etadeshi Tavakripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Disham Yaha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadaharihi Na Tanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagatisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishvare Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthita Duri Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galadashuru Daraya Vadanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kadatava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yuga Itam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashri Shava Padaratam Pinnashtumam Adarshanam Marmhatam Karotuva Yatha Tatava Vitatatu Lampato Madprananatha Susa Eva Na Paraha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Ki Jai. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes fire of conditional life, or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction of humanity in the large, because it expresses a race and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can run all benediction human beings. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names of Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have vested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate and have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and straw in the street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Samarantananda Krishna, I'm an eternal servitor, yet somehow I fall in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at the one Adam at your lotus feet. O my Lord, won't my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Won't my voice choke up or hear my body stand and the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling of separation comes a moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and shall remain so if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything, everything, for it's always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chit. Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshum Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachadesha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhani Devi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinadarine Rupanuga Viruta Pasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumistvam Nirdeshta Sajana Priyaha Vaishnava Sava Bhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarupischa Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavne Pyo Vaishnave Pyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishin Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karna Sindho Dinapanto Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jaitam Surator Pangor Mamamanda Matekati Masarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Dvindaranya Kaupajumadha Shimadrana Gara Sinhasanastho Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtaripi Sevamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarampi Vamsivata Tatastitaha Karsham Vinu Saner Gopir Gopinatha Shri Yestunaha Dapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Tata Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmasuka Praviksha Lakshariteshu Surabi Rabi Balayantam Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sampramasevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Parharvatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kantarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Alola Chantakala Savanamare Vamshi Ranankatam Pranayakeri Kalavilasam Shamam Tripanga Lalitam Yata Prakasham Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Adganyasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashanti Panti Karayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chimmaya Satujala Vigrahasya Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Advaitam Achotam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durabam Adurabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Pantastu Koti Shatavasara Sampragamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Munipangavanam Sopyasti Yaprapada Simya Vichinta Tatve Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ekopya Sarya Chaitum Jagadanta Kotim Yachakti Rasti Jagadanta Chayaya Danta Antantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govinda Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Yat Bhava Pavitadiyo Manujastateva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha Suktayam Eva Nikama Patithaistu Vanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ananda Chimmaya Rasa Patipavitapi Sthapi Eva Nijarupataya Kalapi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatama Bhutto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Premanjana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sateva Hidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Mutishu Kalanyamena Tishtan Nanavatamakaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Sambhava Paramapumam Yo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This whole spiritual body is original of all. Eternal origin and the prime cause of all causes. Worship Govinda.
Both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, the Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Sham Sundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their hearts of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who has manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nishinga, Vamana, etc., as its subjective portions. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Janmadasya yata and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadasya yata niviyad itaratas charte swavigya swarat tene brahma hidaya adikavaye muyanti at surayaha tejo varimadam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo misha damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param mahi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of material nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2. Dharma projita kaitruvotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atravastu shivedanta botrayon mulanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parer Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridya Varudyate Cha Kriti Bihisa Susabhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold mysteries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva, in its maturity is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukhamakad amrita dravyasam yutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho raska bhuvibhavaka. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire-to Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami, therefore this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacharine Nirvise Sasunivadi Paskatya Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, Text number 1. And your homework for today was to read carefully this verse and purport and to try and understand why Krishna inspires Brahma to create the 5 types of ignorance that keep living entities entangled in the material world as the first creation that Brahma undertakes. And it's a little bit, it might seem a little bit perplexing why Krishna would ask Brahma to create Tamishya, Andratamisya, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha, 5 types of ignorance that keep people conditioned in the material world as the first thing before the material creation takes place. So now we're going to hear about this. So text 1. Maitreya uvacha iti te varnita shata kalakya paramatmana mahima veda garbhuta yata shraksin nibodhame. Maitreya uvacha. She Maitreya said, iti, thus, te, unto you, varnita, described, shata, o vidura, kala akya, by the name eternal time, paramatmana, of the supersoul, mahima, glorious, Veda Garbha, Lord Brahma, the reservoir of the Vedas, Ata, hereafter, Yata, as it is, Ashrakshit, did create, Niboda, just try to understand, may, from me. You see where he says, just try to understand. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. She Maitreya said, O learned Vidura, so far I have explained to you the glories of the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his feature of Kala. So that was explained in the previous chapter. And now you can hear from me about the creation of Brahma, the reservoir of all Vedic knowledge. Text number 2. Sasar jagre nidatamishram atatamishram adikrit mahamoham cha moham cha tamas cha jnana vittaya sasarga. Sasarja, created, agre, at first. Under Tamishram, the sense of death. Ata, then. Tamishram, anger upon frustration. Adikrit, all these. Mahamoham, ownership of enjoyable objects. Cha, also. Moham, illusory conception. Cha, also. Tama, darkness in self-knowledge. Cha, as well as agnana, nescience. Ritaya, engagements. Translation. Brahma first created the nescient engagements. Nescient means ignorant engagements. Like self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception or forgetfulness of one's real identity. Okay, so who would like to read the purport? Okay, read slowly and loudly.
Sure, Maharaj. Purport by Prabhupada. Before the factual creation of the living entities in different varieties of species, the conditions under which a living being in the material world has to live were created by Brahma. Unless a living entity forgets its real identity, it is impossible for him to live in the material condition of life. Therefore, the first condition of material existence is forgetfulness of one's real identity. And by forgetting one's real identity, one is sure to be afraid of death. Although a pure living soul is deathless and birthless. This false identification with material nature is the cause of false ownership of things which are offered by the arrangement of superior control. All material resources are offered to the living entity for his peaceful living and for the discharge of the duties of self realization in conditioned life. But due to false identification, the conditioned soul becomes entrapped by the sense of false ownership of the property of the Supreme Lord. It is evident from this verse that Brahma himself is a creation of the Supreme Lord, and the five kinds of necessance which condition the living entities in material existence are creations of Brahma. It is simply ludicrous to think
Ludicrous.
ludicrous to think the living entity to be equal with the supreme being when one can understand that the conditioned souls are under the influence of Brahma's magic wand. Patanjali also accepts that there are five kinds of necessance as
Nations.
nations as mentioned herein.
Okay, now see, this is like amazing. Why would this be the first thing that Brahma creates? Well, it's because the living entities have already revolted against Krishna and desired to independently enjoy, free from Krishna. So they can no longer stay in the spiritual world. They're forced to come to the material world. Now, in the material world, how can you live here? You have to be in a state of illusion to want to live here, because almost everything in this material world is full of misery, right? So, not almost everything, everything is ultimately miserable in the material world. So, therefore, in order to accommodate the consciousness of the fallen souls, Brahma, the first thing Brahma creates are these five types of ignorance that keep a person in the material world. Now, did he want to do this? He didn't like the idea of doing it, but he was ordered to do it by Krishna. Otherwise, people would not be able to have this limited free choice. When you have limited free choice, you can't force people to be Krishna conscious. They have to voluntarily want to be Krishna conscious. So, in order not to force them, you need to have these five types of ignorance so that they can feel comfortable doing nonsense and wasting their time eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And then eventually, you see, Krishna instructs the living entities in two ways. One is he'll speak Bhagavad Gita, which is the truth. And the other way is that he deputes Durga Mata to put everybody into illusion so that they can pursue their perverted desires for sense gratification. So, therefore, you see, Krishna is giving everybody a chance to do what they want. If they don't want to be Krishna conscious, well, he has to help them lose their consciousness of Krishna. Nobody can do anything without the help of Krishna. So it's just like having a uncontrolled child. An uncontrolled child refuses to follow the orders of the parents. In fact, whatever the parents say, the child do something opposite. So eventually, you're obliged to go along with the child because otherwise the child throws a tantrum, starts screaming, and etc. So, like for example, some time ago, someone was talking to me, a devotee was talking to me about he heard or he knew a family that gives that has a daughter or daughters that go to high school, but knowing very well that they're engaging in illicit activities, they support them by giving contraceptives and things like that. Now, does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. But in a sense, they're forced to do it. Otherwise, their daughter will get pregnant and start having kids. So you see how sometimes you get into these impossible situations where you're forced to do things that you know is wrong, but you cannot, but you have no choice. Well, we always have a choice, but due to these 5 types of ignorance, our choices sometimes become completely blurred, and we start making these big mistakes. So what are these big mistakes? Well, you're going to see that there's different ways of calculating these 5 types of ignorance or explaining them. We'll just read what's stated here, and then I'll read some other places where the same thing is explained a little bit differently. So, Brahma first created the nescient or ignorant engagements, like self-deception. That means not knowing who you are. What does that mean? That means most people think, I am this body. In fact, 99% of the people in the world think, I am this body. So that's a self-deception. That means that you're identifying wrongly. And as soon as you make, like let's say you're taking a test in mathematics, and you have a math problem, and in the beginning of the answer to the question that you have to answer, you make a mistake. That means everything following that is going to be a mistake also. So this self-deception is the beginning of conditional life in the material world. And we cannot do any of these things without Krishna's help. Like, for example, if you want to engage in sense gratification, you have to forget Krishna. You can't be Krishna conscious and voluntarily engage in sense gratification. So, how can you forget Krishna? Well, Krishna helps you, because he says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanavisto matak smritir jnanam apahanam cha vedaischa sarvir ham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. Krishna says, I am present in the heart of every living entity, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And I am to be known through all the Vedas. In other words, the real goal of the Vedas is to know who Krishna is and completely engage in his service. And I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna is to be known through the Vedas. He's the compiler of the Vedas, and he is the goal of the Vedas. So here we have a verse in which it's clearly saying that he can give people forgetfulness. So in order to engage in sense gratification, you have to forget Krishna. And who else could help you to forget Krishna than Krishna himself? So therefore, it's very serious thing to desire the wrong thing. That's why we should come to class regularly. That's why we should hear this Bhagavad Darshan, so that we do not cheat ourselves or fool ourselves into what's called self-deception. So the number one self-deception is to think that I am this body. Right away, every other decision we make in life is going to be wrong, based on this false conception that I am the body and not the soul. Number two, if I believe that I am the body, then I develop a sense of death, that I can stop existing, that I can die. All right. And then number three, when we get frustrated by not having enough sense gratification or not having whatever we want for a sense gratification, we become angry. So, number four, it's the sense of false ownership. I own this car, I own this house, I have this property, I have this 401k, I have this, I have that, etc., etc. And this is all false ownership. Like, for example, there was once a man who didn't trust anyone. He didn't trust his wife, he didn't trust his sons, he didn't trust the bank, he didn't trust the government. So, but he would make a lot of money. So to protect his money, once a month, he would go into the forest to a secret place, and he had buried his money in next to a tree, and he would dig the hole open and then put the money, it could be jewels, it could be gold or whatever, into the hole. And in this way, instead of putting the money in the bank, he would put it in this hole and cover it. And there was one dacoit or thief. He lived in the forest, and he noticed once a month this man would come, and sometimes he would just come just to touch the hole. In other words, there was no hole there. He would cover it, but he would just touch it like that, and this would give him some kind of pleasure. And he would say, ooh, ah, ah. And other times he would come and dig up the hole and put more money in it, right? So the dacoit, noticing this very particular and strange behavior, he thought, let me go dig a hole, dig that hole and see what's there. So he digs the hole and he sees it's full of gold and jewelry and all kinds of precious things. So he takes all the gold and everything, and he just covers the hole. So then a month later, the man comes, and he digs up the hole, and to his complete, let's say, shock, there's nothing there, right? And he starts screaming, ah! You know, and he's like pulling his hair and he's going crazy. So the dacoit comes and says, sir, what's the matter? He said, my money, it's not here anymore. He said, really? He said, yes. I have to find it. He said, well, why you want to find it? Just cover the hole and then put your hand on top and go, ooh, ooh, ooh. And then when he said that, the man almost had a heart attack because he realized that this guy was probably the thief. And the thief just walked away, you see. So what do you actually have? You see, it's just like sometimes there's the market crash, and it wipes out your entire 401k, or it could wipe out all uh, your stocks. So you see, this is false ownership. It's a very, very, let's say, subjective issue. Like, for example, uh, during World War I, when Germany lost the war against the Allies, uh, the German Deutschmark failed. The Germans, they would have to get a wheelbarrow, fill it up with money, Deutschmarks, and take it to the local bakery to buy a loaf of bread. They'd have to take, hundreds or thousands of Deutschmarks just to buy bread, because the value of the money tanked seriously. So you see, all these things, just like sometimes the price of gasoline goes up. Now it's like $5.50, right? Before it might have been $3. I remember when I used to go to school in my car in high school, it was only like $1. Right? So now it's $5. Sometimes, like in California, it goes up to $8 a gallon, right? In Europe, it's much more expensive than the United States. So all these things are being manipulated, and they are they're not guaranteed. Just like you can, when there's inflation, before with $10 you could buy more things, and now because of inflation you can only buy lesser things because the money is devalued. So therefore, this concept of false ownership is what keeps us in the material world. And then finally, the illusory bodily conception. I am this body. I am Telangana. I am Andhra. I am a Hindu, or I am a Muslim, or I am a gay, or this or that. These are all false identifications and of the bodily concept of life. Okay, so, and ultimately, this illusory bodily conception leads to forgetfulness of one's real identity. No, I'm not any of these things. I'm an eternal soul. So here we have 5 types of ignorance that Brahma had to create before the material creation, before he actually, the material creation, the seed of it all was created by Krishna, but before he could plant all those seeds and make everything, let's say, manifest, he had to create these 5 types of ignorance: Tamishra, Andhra-Tamishra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. Okay, so now let's ask the question: why did Brahma have to do this? Well, why did the mother and father agree to give a contraceptive to their daughter so that she would not get pregnant in high school? You see, sometimes people feel might be forced to do something that they don't want to do because of weakness and lack of knowledge, right? Like, for example, I know one family, and they don't want their daughter to live in New York, and the daughter is arguing all the time. I want to live there. I'm bored, living where they're living now. So, but the family, or the mother and father, they're absolutely adamant. It's not a good place for their daughter to live. You see. So now what happens, there can be arguments going on all the time. And eventually maybe the parents give up and they say, okay, or she runs away, or something like that happens, right? Or they just give up and they say, okay, you go live in New York, and you're going to be responsible whatever happens. So these situations come up. Therefore, why do they come up? Because of these 5 types of ignorance: tamishra, under tamishra, tamas, and moha and mahamoha. So then I'm going to read from, and you can look up the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita, what is it? 1 second. 3rd canto, 20th chapter, 18th verse. 3rd canto, 20th chapter, 18th verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now this is another explanation of 3rd canto. I'm sorry, wait a minute, I made a mistake. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:20:18. Okay. All right. And this says, first of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are 5 in number and are called tamishra, andra tamishra, tamas, moha, and mahamoha. So, who would like to read? Read slowly and let's hear it.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol.
The conditioned souls are the living entities who come to the material world to enjoy sense gratification, are covered in the beginning by 5 different conditions. The first condition is a covering of tamishra.
Okay, you notice it says for those people who come to the material world to enjoy sense gratification. Just like someone says, I want to live in New York because I have more sense gratification in New York than I do living, let's say, in Arkansas. All right, so this is especially for those people who want sense gratification. Go ahead.
So the first condition is a covering of tamishra or anger. Constitutionally, each and every living entity has minute independence. It is misuse of that minute independence for the conditioned soul to think that he can also enjoy like the Supreme Lord, or to think, why shall I not be a free enjoyer like the Supreme Lord?
Okay, so somebody wants to imitate Krishna. He says, well, Krishna is dancing Rasa Leela with hundreds and thousands of women, and I want to be like that too. I want to dance. Why should Krishna dance? Why can't I dance with them also? Right? Go ahead.
This forgetfulness of his constitutional position is due to anger or envy. The living entity.
Okay, anger or envy. Like, you can look this up now. There's an organization in the United States and around the world, actually, of men who are angry at women because they're not getting enough sense gratification. And sometimes they murder women. Have you heard of that before? Yeah. You can look it up. One of you can look it up right now. Their whole thing is that because women are not giving sense gratification to them, they feel that they have a right to murder them. And this happens every once in a while in the United States and in Europe and other places. Go ahead.
So, this forgetfulness of his constitutional position is due to anger or envy. The living entity, being eternally a part and parcel servitor of the Supreme Lord, can never, by constitution, be an equal enjoyer with the Lord. When he forgets this, however, and tries to be one with him, his condition is called tamishra.
Okay, so that's Tamishra. He's trying to be an equal enjoyer with Krishna, and that's not possible. So he's trying to do something impossible. Now, we've talked about this before. There are certain laws of nature. So, just like Elon Musk says, we're going to go to Mars. I'm going to build condos up there, and you can buy one and live there. But this is nonsense. It's the laws of nature will not permit that, and you don't hear him talking about it much anymore. Why? Because it's impossible to do. So when you want to do something that's impossible, that is a violation, for example, violating a law of nature, then that's tamishra. You forget who you are actually, and you begin to fantasize that you can be something that you could never be, like equal enjoyers as Krishna. Go ahead.
This tamishra mentality of the living entity is hard to overcome. In trying to get out of the entanglement of material life, there are many who want to be one with the Supreme. Even in their transcendental activities, this lower grade mentality of tamishra continues.
Even in their transcendental activities, look at that statement. That's a huge statement. Even in their transcendental activities, this lower grade mentality of tamishra continues. See? Like there was this one person, a devotee, who's married, and has he tried to take advantage of someone else's wife. Now, by the way, anyone who would ever do a thing like that, that's one of the most it's one of the most sinful things in the whole world that you can do. Just try to enjoy somebody else's wife. And he got caught. And he is a pujari, etc. Right? So even in their transcendental activities, this lower grade mentality of tamishra continues. And what is that lower grade? Why shall I not be a free enjoyer like the Supreme Lord?
Hmm.
You see? Okay, go ahead.
Andhatamishra involves considering death to be the ultimate end. The atheists generally think that the body is the self and that everything is therefore ended with the end of the body. Thus, they want to enjoy material life as far as possible during the existence of the body. Their theory is as long as you live, you should live prosperously. Never mind whether you commit all kinds of so called sins, you must eat sumptuously, beg, borrow, and steal. And if you think by stealing and borrowing you are being entangled in sinful activities for which you will have to pay, then just forget that misconception because after death everything is finished.
Now, this is a very important thing. More and more people today, and usually educated people who have higher degrees, like master's degrees, PhDs, they believe that when you die, everything's over. Therefore, there's no responsibility after death. There's no existence after death. Therefore, they can do whatever they want while they're living. Now, have you ever met anyone like that? I mean, let's say in school, Akshara, for example, do any of the kids there say, oh, when I die, there's nothing?
Yes, Maharaj. They do think that.
Really?
Yes.
I said, I didn't know that you were going to say yes, right? I just asked you the question. So explain a little bit. How does that subject come up?
Maharaj, they don't really talk about death that much. Um, I don't know if it's because they're confident that, um, I mean, everyone knows. I mean, no one knows when death will arrive, but I don't. The topic doesn't arrive, but when it does, they don't talk about beyond anything. They don't talk about anything beyond death, Maharaj.
Yeah, heaven or hell.
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
They just believe you die, that's it.
Maharaj, about 6 months ago, I met with some of my college friends.
Your college friends.
Yes, they're all in very high positions right now in different corporates,
Right.
and so the discussion was around how to plan for the retirement.
For what?
Retirement,
Oh,
how to retire and to live happily. So, and they all basically accept that death is going to happen. The smartness for the of the humans is to plan for the happy retirement. That's all they're thinking about how much to save so that they can
Not run out of money.
monthly how much money they need to get so that they can continue their level of sense enjoyment.
Right.
So that's the okay, right now we have to have this much in the bank in order to continue to have the continued current lifestyle of sense gratification.
Right.
Yeah, but there is no question about what's beyond life. Why should we die? Is there something beyond death?
Why should we prepare for death? When you die, that's it. So now we have to enjoy as much as we can right up to the last moment.
Correct.
Yes. Give her a microphone.
I mean, not only that, people are not talking about death, and it's not just about not talking about death and the life beyond that. I've also seen, especially in the TV or the movies and things like that, it is very conveniently put through the actors that there's only one life. Let's just do it.
Yes.
There's just one life. So it's very conveniently put that for doing any activity is just one life. Just do it.
Yes.
So like this right now that we are learning or reading
Well,
here.
do it means do as much sense gratification
Yes,
as you
so
can
whatever
now.
that they're attending to do or attempting to do, they are just saying that it's just one life. Let's just
Right.
yeah, and it is very conveniently put in most of the movies and the big stars, and when people watch such movies, or they kind of try to those actors who are at very very popular and all, they kind of put into everybody's mind very subtly that that is true.
There's only one life.
There's only one life.
Yeah. So you may as well do everything. you
Attempt
can.
everything, yeah.
Because when you die, there's nothing.
There's nothing, yeah.
You see? This is becoming more and more widespread.
Exactly. In fact, there is a movie that Mataji just prompted. There's a movie whose title is Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. So there's no life again.
Ah.
Yeah, there's a movie whose title is Zindagi Na
advanced
Milegi
Hindi
Dobara.
philosophy. You see, this is being taught. Why? If there's no spiritual world and there's nothing after death, then you only have this one life. So you may as well do whatever you can for sense gratification. Because when you die, there's no responsibilities that you're going to be held to. And that's it. So, you see, they teach this in school. They teach this in school, but in a subtle way. Subtle way is this. Right away in the beginning, they'll say, we don't talk about God because science cannot establish the existence of God. It can't measure, it cannot, it has no way of understanding if God exists. So we just ignore talking about God. Number two, they say. And when you die, there's no, after death, it's all over. But right there, they got you. The kid says, well, there's no spiritual world, there's no eternal life, and when you die, That's it. Everything is over. So you just have this one life. So therefore, I may as well enjoy as much as I can in this life. Now, would you agree? Is that's like becoming more and more prevalent in the society today. And this is very dangerous because no one will make an attempt to become Krishna conscious if they believe this. Okay, go ahead.
So, this atheistic conception of life is killing human civilization, for it is without knowledge of the continuation of eternal life. This Andathamishra ignorance is due to tamas. The condition of not knowing anything about the spirit soul is called tamas.
Yes, so if you don't come to class, you don't read Bhagavad Gita, then you won't believe that you have an eternal soul. Go ahead.
This material world is also generally called tamas, because 99% of the living entities are ignorant of their identity as soul.
99%. 99% of the population of the world. Just like yesterday, I started talking about you have an eternal soul in front of everyone, right? And that the real goal of life is to become liberated from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And that the best moment of life for a devotee is the moment of death, because that's when they see Krishna and go back to Godhead. And the worst moment of life for the materialist is that instead of seeing Krishna, they see Yamaraj and Narak, right? Now, I don't know if people really understood what I was saying, but in other words, these are the things that we have to discuss in public with people, see, because otherwise they have no other way of understanding what is our real condition, what is the real purpose of human life. It's not to eat, sleep, mate, defend, and then die, and then pray that there's nothing after death. That's not the purpose of life. Go ahead.
Almost everyone is thinking he is this body. He has no information of the spirit soul. Guided by this misconception, one always thinks, this is my body and anything in relationship with this body is mine. For such misguided living entities, sex life is the background of material existence. Actually, the conditioned souls in ignorance in this material world are simply guided by sex life. And as soon as they get the opportunity for sex life, they become attached to so-called home, motherland, children, wealth, and opulence. As these attachments increase, moha.
Prabhupada's talking about your friends.
That's right. As these attachments increase, moha, or the illusion of bodily concept of life, also increases. Thus, the idea of that I am this body and everything belonging to this body is mine also increases, and the whole world is put into moha. Sectarian societies, families, and nationalities are created, and they fight with one another. Then Mahamoha means to be mad after material enjoyment.
No, it's crazy. Really crazy. Go ahead.
Especially in this age of Kali, everyone is overwhelmed by the madness to accumulate paraphernalia for material enjoyment. These definitions are very nicely given in Vishnu Purana, wherein it is said, Tamo Viveka Mohasyad.
Okay, you don't have to read it. So, there was this one governor of New York, and he used to be a head prosecutor also before he became governor. And he would prosecute people that would engage in illicit activities, whether it's theft or rape or things like that. Right? So, but he had a secret life. He had a dark side to him. And every once in a while, they have these, the police will set up a trap for people who are seeking prostitutes and things like that, right? And they caught the governor. They caught the governor, who he himself prosecutes people who do things like that. They caught the governor engaged in going to prostitutes and paying money for illicit sex. You see, this is called madness. The man is governor of the whole state of New York. He prosecutes people who engage in illicit activities like that, and he gets caught doing it himself. So, in other words, this is called madness. It's insanity. But people become so overwhelmed with sense gratification that they're willing to take risks like that would completely destroy their credibility. You see, this is very dangerous, very, very dangerous, and it's going on a lot. Like for example, many times politicians get caught cheating on their wives, and then once they get caught, they go on television or they go on the news and they say, well, I made a big mistake, and the most important thing for me is my family and my wife. What? Then why did you cheat on your wife, right? So you see, it's happening all the time. It happens in India also. Don't they catch politicians engaged in cheating or doing illicit things, right? And it happens here also. That means that some people have gone crazy, and they're willing to do very, very bad things, knowing the consequences, but they can't control themselves. It's called madness. Okay. So this is an explanation of these 5 types of ignorance that Brahma created to accommodate the people who want to have sense gratification, so that they can not be forced to be Krishna conscious. They can try and be a sense gratifier for their sense gratification. But in order to do that, they need Krishna's help. So he helps them forget who they are, what is the purpose of life, by these 5 types of ignorance. So that, you have to, first of all, no one is teaching this outside of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And now we're beginning to understand what is actually going on in this world. See, like in the morning you hear these classes, you hear all these ideas. Then you go home, and then you go to work, and you see people driving cars, and they're spending money, and they're buying all kinds of things, and they're basically eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and not really interested in Krishna consciousness or going back to Godhead, not even trying for it. They're trying just to have as much sense gratification as possible. And then you become confused. You say, well, look, in the temple they're saying this, but outside everybody is doing the opposite. Right? So it's a challenge. You think, well, maybe what the temple people are saying is wrong, because everybody else is doing this thing, and they look happy. They're going to the parties, and they're dressed nicely, and then they're dancing, and they're doing stupid things, and they're drinking, and so forth. So it's a challenge. And unless we clearly understand what is the truth, and what we're hearing in the Bhagavatam is the truth, these 5 types of ignorance were specifically made before the creation to accommodate those people who want to reject Krishna and have sense gratification. And you see that it's working in a very, very, let's say, profound way. Now, do we want to be part of that, or do we want to go back to Godhead? We should think about this very seriously, very, very seriously. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So when everyone shared the example in the same reference, during one of my India visit, I was with one of my friend, and so it was the very first day of the meeting. I said no tea and coffee.
You said.
Yeah, when we were meeting, and in the reference when the point came in, I said yeah, no tea and coffee.
For yourself or for everyone?
For myself,
Yeah.
because when meeting with the friends, so that means when taking some when meeting together at the hotel or something, so that time I said no tea and coffee. The next day I met with the same friend, and it was a Ekadashi, and I said no grains. He said, why did you come in this world? That
Yeah,
was his point.
you're not trying to enjoy life.
You are a burden, really. You are a burden here. That's what is mentioned.
Yeah. So see, that's why I'm saying, you hear these things in the temple, you see it in the Bhagavatam, then you go outside, and nobody is on the same level now. They're completely engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and they seem to be happy. And you say, maybe I'm wrong, because they look like they're happy. You see, but you're not looking carefully. You want to know the truth, you go to the hospital, you'll see the truth. You'll see all kinds of people dying, getting sick. And by the way, they build bigger and bigger hospitals every year. Even though America is supposed to have the best medical system in the world, but still, American public is very sick. And a lot of, I mean, almost every week we hear, oh, I have to go back to India, my uncle is dying, or so-and-so auntie has to have this operation, or this thing, that thing, right? So you see, this tragedy is going on all the time, all around us, but we sort of ignore it, or try to ignore it. And whenever it happens, everyone, you're in, they call it smasan, is it vairagya? Samsan vairagya. Yeah, you're in the crematorium. Now they're pushing the body into the oven, and you say, "Oh my God, that could happen to me too." Oh, terrible. And then you go outside, and everyone's talking, and then all of a sudden someone said, "Oh, by the way, next week we have a party. Can you come?" You say, "Oh yeah, where is it?" It's in Everett. I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there." Although the guy lives in Kent, right? Now, if you see the same guy and you say, would you like to come to the festival in the temple? He said, no, it's too far away. I'm in Kent. Samanamish is too far away. But it's not too far away to go all the way to Everett to the party, you see. So this is what's going on, right? And it's a tragedy. So we have to understand, the truth is not something everybody wants. In fact, most people try and avoid it because they don't want to get serious about life. Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Who would like to chant for Srila Prabhupada? So, Bhakti Priya, do we have a lot of marigolds now?
So every week we are able to harvest 600 marigolds. I harvested yesterday 300, Mataji harvested 200 to 500, and then again on Sunday I will harvest 300 more. So approximately I would say 900 we are able to get in a week.
Is that enough for covering all the flowers?
So Maharaj, normally last year we used to get 4 days flowers. This year right now we are at 2 days. Like 2 days we are using marigold or lilies. Eventually if the summer gets deeper, we might be able to get for 3 days.
Okay.
So
Good.
It's slow, but
Yeah.
something is coming.
At least there's something.
Yesterday,
They look nice.
yes, Maharaj, this was beautiful. This is last week we harvested.
Nice, nice. Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Maharaj, next year we will do better job.
Yeah,
Learn
yeah.
the mistakes,
Y-
what
yeah,
we
yeah.
did.
Yeah, that's okay. At least there's something.
Learn from our own mistakes.
Haribo.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandhamui Savadhana Mate
Bandhu Savadana Mate
Bandhamui Savadhana Mate Jahara prasade bhai e bhavatoriya jai Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoite Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te koriya kya Arana kori ho mane asha Arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha Jai Prasad Pure Sarva Asha चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहर चरितो वेद गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनर बंधु लोकना लोकेर जीवना लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवना हा हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पाद जया हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पाद जया ए बेचाश कुशुक त्रिभुवना जय प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद श्रील प्रभुपाद नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Gaura Hari Bol.
Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhupada Fellowship Shishima. His Divine Grace, Sri Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vindi, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vindi, Sri Radha Krishna Gokul Pinath Sam Kunda Radha Vindi, Sri Vrindavan Dan Sri Mayapura Dan Jagannath Puri Dan Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to Samaveda, all glories to Samaveda, all glories to Samaveda, glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The lotus feet are spiritual lotus. There's no way by which we can attain the purity of lotus. I bow down to his lotus feet in great awareness. His grace might cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection, fulfills all desire. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, breath of birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his name. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy. The friend of the poor and lordly master of the devotees. O master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai.